Welcome to the Forge Your Future podcast, brought to you by East Central Educational Service Center, located in Newcastle, Indiana. We proudly provide service support and collaboration to 14 counties and 39 member districts.
At ECESC, we believe that students' strengths and interests are a blueprint to forging a future of success and impact, and we are on a journey to provide support and collaboration to schools as they implement career-connected learning for all students.
As part of this mission, we are here today to celebrate the amazing educators who help the students of East Central Indiana dream big dreams and achieve more than they thought possible.
Their work inspires us each day, and we want to lift up their stories and the stories of the students they are impacting and serving.
My name is Pat Haney, Executive Director here at East Central Educational Service Center, located in Newcastle, Indiana, and co-hosting today with me, as always, is Lindsey Laverne, Instructional Specialist and Grant Coordinator here at ECESC. And hi, Lindsey, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Tell us a little bit about our guest today, Lindsey.
We are honored to be joined on the podcast by two teachers. We have Sam Pfaff and Rob Stonerock, who are both from Eastern Hancock High School. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Thrilled to have you with us today. I would love for both of you to take a moment to give us a quick intro as far as who you are as an educator, what you teach, what is your professional background. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I'm Rob Stonerock, and I have primarily taught English here at Eastern Hancock. It's getting close to about 30 years. And I think what is interesting here about my colleague is this guy used to be in my class. So Sam is not only a colleague of mine, but he's also a former student. And a long time ago, I got a degree in both English and U.S. history. And I always wanted to be a U.S. history teacher, but that job was always reserved for the coach. And so after many, many years, I finally have this gig where I'm now co-teaching with my former student a English and U.S. history class.
Sam, how about you?
Currently in my 11th year of teaching. It's my 6th year at Eastern Hancock. I teach pretty much U.S. history, advanced dual credit U.S. history, regular U.S. history, and then I have an adult roles, which is kind of like a like preparing for adult life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's me. After school, I'm also the wrestling coach here at Eastern Hancock. So, yeah, that's me.
Perfect.
Only been a teacher, graduate of Indiana State University, and that's been my only job.
Okay, well, we're really curious about your co-taught class. Excited to get into that here in a moment. But first, one question that we've been asking all the teachers that we've had on this season is just to share a little bit of your why. What brings you to the classroom each day? What's kept you in the profession? Because both of you are, beyond that statistic of burnout where we see teachers leave. What's kept you going, and what brings you every day?
So one of my big things that helps me is I was very, very fortunate to graduate from Eastern Hancock High School, where I had a great deal of teachers that made a profound impact on my life and really changed me as a human being. One of them is right here. One of my favorite teachers in school. And so I kind of wanted to be able to have that impact on someone else's life, that kind of guiding, lighthouse. Hey, you can achieve, you can do great things with your life if you just try. So that's kind of where I'm at. I enjoy talking to the kids, hearing their stories about their lives and everything they have going on. That's probably one of my biggest strengths as a teacher, is being able to build relationships with all different kinds of kids. Sometimes I feel like coaches get accused of just being friends with the athletes. I feel like I pride myself in being able to talk and build relationships with every kid. So, that's my why.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a really good answer, Sam. And I would agree with that. I think you really are remarkable with the relationships that you have with our students in class. And now you've got the really profound answer. I'm just here for the money. No, I think that one of my whys is I'm really passionate about the subject matter, both English language arts and U.S. history. And I love interpreting both of those things for our students. And so one of the things I do like to think of myself as an interpreter of literature, of history, and of writing, and helping to connect our students with the subject matter.
You guys could not have teed that up any better. So kudos to both of you. Because as you think about, that subject matter, the two of you have launched into kind of a unique partnership and collaboration in terms of teaching a class together. So let's kind of dive into that. Tell us about this class and how it came to be and how it functions, where the two of you are working hand in hand with some juniors.
Yeah, it really came to be. I think that as all great innovations come in education, as a scheduling problem. And so on the very last teacher work day, we're working through a scheduling problem where we were trying to coordinate how could we combine an English class and a U.S. history class. And there seemed to be no way that we could work it so that students could go from one English class to the history class. And so we said, let's just embed them together in one period and see if during that one instructional block, we can get both content areas covered. And so what is probably unique about our course is that we're trying to get both core elements done in one class period. Mm-hmm. And I think that English and U.S. history are perfect for that because they really go hand in hand with reading and writing. Mm-hmm. And with this, and oftentimes as an English teacher, I always thought of myself as a history teacher too, because rarely do you approach a piece of literature without a lot of historical context.
So walk us through this a little bit. This did not come from we're two teachers and we're best friends and we want to do this class. This really came out of a student-centered. How can we help solve this problem that's presented?
How it came to be one class period was a scheduling issue. But what we were looking at really was, as a high school teacher, someone who teaches a lot of boys that are disengaged with the idea of reading and writing. It is not my favorite topic. We were thinking about how we could make the last couple of years of English in the high school more meaningful, rather than this idea of, you take English 11, you take English 12, and English 11 and English 12 are largely a repeat of English 10 and English 9. Right? Different pieces of literature, but basically the concept is the same. And for a lot of people, that's repetitive and not particularly engaging. And it's also probably not the very best way to teach the core elements of literacy that we really want our students to walk away with. And that is, how do you apply these areas of literacy in content areas outside of English language arts or to work-based learning problems. And so our first go around has been, let's see if we can do it in a content area. And as we said, U.S. history seems to work magically with that. Mm-hmm. Our next attempt might be something a little bit more out there, in which we explore how we can get kids who are maybe doing some work-based learning, how they can get an English credit by going to work.
I love that, Rob. And, that makes so much sense, especially when you think about student engagement and how that content, while it builds on each other, there are definitely some duplications, continued learning that might be a little bit of a barrier for some kids that aren't already engaged and interested in that English content. So you're a couple months in. Would love to hear what you are seeing, what kind of an impact you feel like this is having with those goals of student engagement and relevance.
I feel like, so we've done it now so we did a whole year last year. And we've gotten, we're a quarter in of this year so far. And I feel like just from the beginning, it takes two very special people to accomplish this, because you're asking two teachers to give up a lot of their freedom in the classroom and allow somebody else to come in and do some stuff. So I think it takes two special people to make this happen. But when it works, it's like poetry in motion. Sorry for the English joke there. But it just works so well. You know, we're reading, and what they're reading is history. They're reading history articles, and they're writing about history, and they're asking questions, and they're really, really engaging with some English skills, but it's happening within the walls of a history class. And it's almost like disguising these things that they wouldn't normally like. They're like, oh man, I don't like reading, but I'll read about the Civil War because that's interesting. And so they're using these English skills, and it's almost like disguising it to them. And I think it has worked out tremendously so far. It's a lot of work, but it's been pretty good so far.
Walk us through a little bit of what your class period looks like. Are you both there? How is instructional time divided? It sounds like you're using, you know, the history standards as your content, and then you're also accomplishing your ELA standards through their engagement of that. Tell us a little bit more logistically what that looks like.
So the students show up to one room. And oftentimes we kind of negotiate which room that's going to be. And sometimes the students are surprised, but they show up to one room. We're both here. We usually have an instructional piece that we handle during that day. For example, I'll set up an article. We'll use various reading strategies with the article. I'll go through the vocabulary with them. They'll read the article. And then Mr. Pfaff will demonstrate maybe a history skill, and he'll provide some historical context and perhaps a lecture that goes with it. So I usually handle the literacy aspect of it, Mr. Pfaff, and we both do content. We both do literacy. There's no clear dividing line because the subject matters, they just go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I think that it is interesting though sometimes when I'm looking at how I grade an essay versus how Mr. Pfaff grades an essay, and oftentimes those things we're using different rubrics. We're looking for slightly different things, and we're not always coordinated. As a matter of fact, I don't think that we have coordinated how we grade those essays at all. They have a rubric for me. They have a rubric for Mr. Pfaff. Okay. And I do an instruction with what I want. Mr. Pfaff does instruction with what he wants. And sometimes the scores are very close. And sometimes they are very different.
And so also another great segue is that you all have been diving into the idea of competency-based grading, which is a huge conversation, growing conversation, definitely within our state and nationwide. What can you share with us about what that means and about the transition towards competency-based grading so far?
So essentially with U.S. history, what I've done is I've broken U.S. history into 6 different skills, what we call key learning outcomes. And so it's all a skill. And then they demonstrate the skill using the content. So they might hit these, like I said, we call them KLOs. They're going to hit them multiple times throughout the year. And they're going to demonstrate that skill using the content for where we're at. So when we start tomorrow with kids back in the room, we're going to be talking about causes of the Civil War. And so the KLO that we're focused on is cause and effect. And so they're going to tell me what are the causes of the Civil War, and that demonstrates that skill that they can show cause and effect, and this event caused this event, and kind of work down the line. And then so I've got a whole big, grading thing that I'm working on, trying to figure out how we apply the mastery of these skills to a letter grade and vice versa, and how all that's going to work. And that would be a whole different hour-long discussion trying to explain that. But for me, the big thing is, this is just one of my personal opinions and philosophies. They have so much access to information. Mm-hmm. and that's only going to grow as they get older. So I think the really important piece of a U.S. history class is to not teach them names and dates, but to give them skills that are going to be applicable in the modern world. Like, if I'm watching the news, can I look at the news and decide what is bias? What's the truth? And how do I find the truth? And using those skills, that way they're a more informed person in society. And so that's really what I'm hoping to kind of give to them as they go through U.S. history at Eastern Hancock, because they're always going to be able to look up when the Declaration of Independence was signed. If somebody asks them on the street, they just pull out their phone and look it up. That's what, if somebody asks me a question I don't know the answer to, I Google it, and they're going to do the same thing. So giving them skills that help them be better citizens is kind of my goal of the class. And so I've, taken those skills and made them into, some sort of thing that they can demonstrate throughout the year. And they have to demonstrate it so many times in order for me to say that they are showing proficiency in that skill, and then they move on.
It makes me think of what Mr. Stonerock said at the beginning, that they'll always have Google in their pocket, but they're not always going to have access to a trustworthy interpreter of literature and of news and of history. So I think that it's great that you're able to come alongside as their guide in, at this young age for them while they're exploring these topics.
Yeah.
What has been the parent reception for this new idea? I mean, you're talking about, you're blowing it up a little bit with two classes in one class period, being graded based on competencies. How does that turn into a letter grade? How's that going to affect my graduation, my plans, and how's that been navigated?
So that's a complicated conversation that we're having as an entire school, because as an entire high school, we're making a transition to competency-based grading. And so we've started last year with every single teacher identifying those key learning outcomes. Those are our competencies. And most people are identifying anywhere between 5 or 7 competencies. And then the task for teachers has really been to make sure that the feedback that we're giving to students and the grade that we are putting in grade books is truly an accurate measure of those competencies, rather than an accumulation of points for things that may or may not demonstrate those competencies, whether it's a participation grade or whether it's, hey, I completed the worksheet, whatever it is. So we're really trying to look at and barrel down into our grades to see what those look like. I think that it's going to be an ongoing conversation as more teachers adopt this and the grade book starts to look a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. For me, I think that I've always, as an English teacher, I think that these competencies have always been very prominent in my book. Mm-hmm. And I've always used key learning outcomes. I called them categories or standards previously. Mm-hmm. But in my grade book for probably a decade, I've been able to look at those key learning outcomes, see how people are doing in reading comprehension versus writing application, versus speaking and listening skills, or whatever it is that I've articulated in the grade book. So for me, that hasn't been too much of a transition. But I think for some of the students and seeing how grades are weighted, that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And we're still in the process of figuring that out, what that looks like. What does that really translate into in terms of the grade book?
First of all, applaud Eastern Hancock, but also the two of you for being willing, grading. You talked about school schedules earlier. The things that probably create the most angst and sometimes challenges in a school are changing the schedule and asking someone to change their grading practices. I mean, it cuts close to everyone's heart and the day-to-day work that they do. So just kudos to both of you for being willing to jump into that arena and be a part of thinking through how to really make how to make the outcomes that we have for students be central to the grades, what those grades actually reflect when they receive that feedback at the end of the semester.
I think a lot of people that listen are highly engaged folks who are rethinking a lot of what's going on in the education space and thinking innovatively. And so, just always thinking about how someone else may want to try and implement something similar. What have been some of the challenges that you have maybe had to overcome in setting this up? I was going to ask a two-parter. Let's just start there. What have some of the challenges been, and have you overcome those?
Well, I would say that we've really been struggling this semester with mastery of content versus skills. So in competency-based grading, or competencies in general, skills in general, I think there's this tension between skills and knowledge. Mm-hmm. Real tension there.
Yeah.
And Sam was underscoring some of that, to the degree that just knowing a bunch of perhaps trivia is worthwhile. It does become difficult to assess a skill when knowledge is really lacking. So, for example, I'm looking at writing with evidence, and I'm looking at the evidence to support a particular premise or argument, and the evidence is, nonsensical, or it's not historical, or they've confused a lot of facts. And I could say, the skills are there. I can see that I can see that you might be able to put together an argument, but the evidence for it is weak or contradictory, or would make you laughable if you were presenting this to anyone. No one would believe this argument because you're not in command of the information. And we spend a lot of our time building some content knowledge. And then by the time we get to the let's practice the skills, we're almost out of time. That's probably a feature of trying to do a lot in one class period. But I think that it's also just a basic tension that I think that thoughtful teachers are going to have to think about always. This is something we've always had to think about, but even more so when we start to make the transition into competency-based grading. And if you want this to be viable, and if you want people to really say, yes, this is increasing the rigor, then we've got to deal with that tension.
That could be a whole other long conversation. Sure. I mean, I can see how that would come out so visibly in what you're trying to do. But in any classroom, that tension exists.
Right.
Because I think, I know from my experience of feeling the pressure of trying to do highly engaging and rigorous things that would get students out of their seat, would get them demonstrating their skills in other ways that, all these things were you're not the sage on the sage or the guide on the side. All of that at the same time, explicit instruction is really important. And, how do those things hold hands in a way that really, really works and leads to the outcomes that you're wanting. So, thank you for sharing all of that. My next wondering as I listened to you talk was what support from your other team members or from your administration have you needed to be able to implement this well?
Yeah. So I agree. I think the key has been you've been remarkably flexible with allowing me, because mainly it's been, I think the first year was just me intruding on your classroom where I just showed up and said, let's read some more stuff and let's do some vocabulary and let's also add an essay to whatever you're doing. And so Sam was remarkably flexible with that and has shown just a tremendous capacity to think, especially Sam is very much leading the way in competency-based grading. And I know that is a topic for a different show, but he's been really tremendous in developing these competencies and conveying them to students. So that's been pretty remarkable. And as far as our administration goes, with this shift to competency-based education, it's a conversation that they've opened up for the entire school and all teachers. And because we're having these conversations in every single class, it's made it remarkably easy for us to sort of lead the way.
Rob, what's it felt like to get to see one of your former students teach?
The great thing about teaching at a small country school like Eastern Hancock is I've had the opportunity to have a lot of my former students as colleagues, and Sam is one of them. And I will say that on a personal level, Sam remembered so much of my class. I was really impressed. I have to say that I was really impressed by his knowledge of what we covered. It was better than mine. I didn't read the books. I was shocked. We read that book. I had no idea. But it's been really amazing to see Sam as, a very strong, very capable teacher. And he was a really good student as well. And it's very, very satisfying to see my former students as colleagues.
Yeah.
Imagine you've had opportunities to learn from one another as well. Like not everybody has the chance to get to see other teachers teach very often once you're a practicing educator. And so you have the opportunity to watch and learn from each other as you go as well.
One of the things that I've really learned from Sam, and I'm continuing to grow, I'm this late in my career, and I'm still learning this kind of patience with students that Sam just seems to innately have. He builds very strong relationships, especially with students who really, are not engaged, and he uses that relationship as a basis to bring them in to the subject matter. And just watching him do that and be a good model of that, which, as you say, is very difficult to watch people. You don't get to see people being patient with students, and just kind of developing some techniques from watching Sam, who has mastered it somehow, either intuitively or just as part of his studies as a teacher. I've learned from him that way.
That's great. I'm glad you asked that, Lindsey. I was thinking the same thing. It's such a great opportunity just to be in the classroom and watch a colleague teach and see their craft and their instructional moves. So really appreciate you both coming in and being a part of our podcast and sharing a little bit about your work. But before we wrap up, we have to ask the last question that we always like to ask our guests is about a recommendation, something that you'd be excited to recommend to others. It could be anything, a book, a blog, a show, a new habit, an ed tech tool, could be personal, professional. What would you want to recommend to your friends today?
Well, I'm gonna model off of Sam here, and so Sam has become a great reader, and he has been telling me about his. I don't know, how many novels did you read this summer?
I don't know, a lot.
A lot of novels. A lot of novels from a coach. I love it. So he read East of Eden this summer. East of Eden. And based on his recommendation, I can't believe I haven't read it yet, John Steinbeck's famous novel, East of Eden. It's a great novel, and Sam recommended it to me, and I'm reading it right now, and I would recommend it to you. But my larger recommendation is get some recommendations from your former students.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks, Rob. How about you, Sam?
So I went on kind of this, a personal journey last May to kind of figure out my brain and the way my brain works. And so I started doing daily my daily tasks and just like a check. I have a little pocket journal that I carry everywhere with me, and I do my daily tasks in there. And this is what I've got. This is absolutely what I've got to get done today. Make sure that before I go to bed, all of those boxes are checked. Right. And so these are the absolute things that I have to get done today. And then I try to do my best to journal every day. And it's kind of just a way for me to spill out my brain. Like teachers have a lot of stress and they carry a lot of stress. And it's really good to just spill all of that out onto a piece of paper. It's not a story. It's not a diary. It's not something that I'm looking for people to read and figure out education 60 years from now or 500 years from now. It's just to throw everything that's in my brain out onto a piece of paper so that I can turn my brain off at the end of the night. And it has been incredible for me. And I read a lot now. I used to get home and my wife and I would try to find a TV show to watch, and we wouldn't be able to find anything. So we'd end up doom scrolling TikTok. And I just decided, how can I better use this time? Yeah. So I started reading, and I have knocked out a absurd amount of books just in that time. So that's my three things: keep a little notebook, journal, and read books. It's been good for my mental state.
Well, Sam and Rob, this has been such a joy. Lindsey and I have had the unique opportunity to see on a couple of occasions former students, now teacher students, now working together as colleagues, and to see the two of you actually rethinking and reimagining junior year history and English and bringing those content areas together is really a story worth telling. So thank you to both of you for being on the podcast. Thank you for the work that you do for our students and our community. And we just wish you nothing but continued success and joy in your work.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Forge Your Future podcast. We hope that this glimpse into the bright future of East Central Indiana inspires you and brings you hope.
We have the privilege to work with these future makers every day and want to share their stories throughout Indiana and beyond.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it with your circle, and let's keep the conversation going.
You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on our website.
Until next time, remember that your strengths and interests are a blueprint to your future of success and impact.